Now I'm going to show you a very quick tutorial on how to read a whole life insurance illustration. So if you read various materials on IBC, or if you contact one of the authorized IBC practitioners that have been through our graduate program, you're going to probably at some point encounter what are called illustrations, meaning projections showing how this policy will perform in various circumstances and just showing you options of what you can do with this policy down the road, how much you can expect to be paying in premiums, and how its cash values and the ability of you to take out policy loans will change over time. So in order for you to be able to interpret those, you need to be able to read a whole life policy illustration. And so that's what I'm going to show you right now. Now, this slide or these numbers were taken from an actual real life whole life policy. I rounded, of course, to make the numbers nicer, but again, this is based on a real policy, so this isn't science fiction here. So let me just walk through some of the main components of this. Now, of course, depending on which company makes the illustration, the setup might not be identical to this. This is sort of a generic one that I made, but the basic structure is probably going to be the same. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that in this particular illustration, notice the death benefit is constant throughout the life of the policy. And I did that on purpose. Right? So often what you'll see in the IBC universe is that an IBC policy, as it matures, as it ages, the death benefit is going to keep getting bigger and bigger. But that's because what you're technically doing with those policies is you're using the dividend payments to buy more what's called paid up insurance. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on in this lesson. But I don't want you to get confused. I want you to understand the baseline whole life policy has a constant death benefit like this one does. All right, this one, the numbers I chose, it happens to be $776,000. All right, and again, that's constant throughout the life of the policy. I should also mention that this policy, I believe, goes up to age 121, but I'm only showing you up through age 92 for the purposes of this exposition. Now, this column we see shows the annual premiums that you have to pay. All right, so in order for you to take out this policy, in order for the life insurance company to be on the hook for giving your beneficiary $776,000 if you should happen to die, you have to make these annual premium payments of $10,000. Now notice here, I'm bringing your attention to year 91. So notice the $10,000 annual premium payments are going through all the way up through year 90, or age 90, I should say. But then when the policyholder hits age 91, notice the premium drops to zero, and then it stays zero from that point forward. So what that means is this particular policy design is what we might call paid up after 90. So it means this policy is in force. You make annual premium payments of $10,000 in this case up to age 90, but then that's the last one you're on the hook for. Then contractually, this is called a paid up policy, and it's still in force, right? So you still have coverage from age 91 onward. If you happen to die when you're 98, this policy is still going to pay $776,000 to the named beneficiary. It's just your end of the bargain is satisfied with this particular design at age or after age 90. Now, the next thing I want to draw your attention to is the column denoted guaranteed values. And so here, notice the cash surrender value. So for example, at age 36, after that first premium payment, the guaranteed cash surrender value is $0. Right? So the life insurance company is saying on year one, if you first open up the policy and then you decide, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm going to walk away and dissolve it, they're not going to give you any spot payment to walk away. However, the death benefit from inception is $776,000. So by you making that first premium payment, you've got the full death benefit coverage. It's just the cash value, at least the guaranteed one, is zero. But now over time, let's just skip ahead to age 43, for example, 7 years into the policy. Notice that the cash surrender value on the guaranteed portion of this illustration has grown to $59,000. So what that means is, contractually, if you were to take out the life insurance policy to which this illustration corresponds, that they're guaranteeing it to you. So they're not just saying, we hope this is the case. They're guaranteeing that if you take out this policy the way it's structured here and described, so long as you make those annual $10,000 premium payments, if you get to be age 43 after you've made that $10,000 payment for that year, we guarantee that if you walk away from this policy, we will give you at least $59,000. Now, in practice, the cash surrender value could be higher, and we'll talk about that later. But I'm saying what it means to say this is guaranteed, it's saying the cash surrender value is going to be at least $59,000 at that point. By the way, I should also mention the death benefit is always guaranteed, right? So the death benefit is what it is in terms of once it's there, it's there. They're not going to take it away from you. But these guaranteed cash values are saying is an added feature. Not only are we saying if you happen to die at any point, you get the death benefit, we're also saying the longer you make payments on this thing, the more we would be willing to pay you to walk away from it. Now notice, drawing your attention to age 92 here, notice that the cash surrender value has continued to grow, and in fact, it's up to $684,000 by age 92. Now, I don't have it shown here just because it was too much to fit, but actually, the way these policies are designed, if you let them run out to the full maturity point, to when they complete, you would see the cash surrender value would gradually rise and ultimately equal the death benefit. So for this policy, which I believe was designed to fulfill or mature or complete at age 121, that guaranteed cash surrender value would keep going up year after year. And notice, by the way, the cash surrender value grows even after you've stopped making premium payments. Okay, so the premium payments are not necessary to make the cash surrender value grow. Just make sure you realize that. The cash surrender value keeps growing. And by age 121, that cash surrender value would have grown and just exactly equaled $776,000, which makes sense because at that point the policy completes, you walk away, and they're giving you the $776,000. Now, let's look at the non-guaranteed projections. So the big difference between the guaranteed and the non-guaranteed, well, obviously the non-guaranteed are not guaranteed, but in practice, what does that mean? It has to do with what's called a dividend. So here, the idea is that the life insurance company is not guaranteeing you that there's ever going to be dividends. However, the life insurance company conducts itself very conservatively. Or another way of putting it is they actually take more in premium payments from people than they actuarially think they're going to have to need to pay out the death benefits. Now let me draw your attention, for example, to age 43. Here we see that the annual premium payment is $10,000. The dividend they're projecting here, again, this is a non-guaranteed projection, is $1,300. So what they're saying is the way in practice we conduct ourselves, we think year after year we take in more in premium payments than we're actually going to need. And then in a sense what we do is we have this surplus and we return it to the policyholders in the form of dividends after we run the numbers and we pay the death benefits for the given time period and so on, and we see how much money we have left over because we were so conservative. We distribute these dividends. So they're not guaranteeing it contractually, but they're just saying in practice, in a typical year, we do have a surplus left over, and we return it to the share or the policy holders, who in a mutual company are the owners of the company, in the form of dividend payments. Okay? So in this particular illustration, they're saying for this policy, if things go the way they typically do, even though we're not guaranteeing it contractually, but if things play out the way they typically do, 7 years into the policy, you will probably get from us an annual dividend close to $1,300. So now the other column here, where I have the line underneath, you'll see says net premium outlay, and that's $8,700. So what does that mean? Well, notice $8,700 plus $1,300 equals $10,000. So what this is showing, this particular illustration, it's showing that you, the policyholder, if you start taking the dividends out as we offer them to you, that's offsetting the gross premium that you owe us contractually. So again, contractually, age 43, you have to make a $10,000 payment to keep this policy in force. But if the life insurance company happens to be giving you $1,300 that year as a dividend payment, there's a sense in which you're really only out of pocket $8,700 to keep this policy in force. So that's what they're calling the net premium outlay. Now, I want to be clear to avoid confusion here. The cash surrender value on this particular illustration, even on the non-guaranteed side, matches what I had for the guaranteed side. And that is because, just to keep things simple so you would not get confused, to have as few moving parts as possible, that's because I deliberately engineered this example so that the policy holder just takes those premium or the dividends every year and pockets them. Right? So these dividends are not being reinvested in the policy. Okay? And again, I'm doing that just to teach you how to read these things and to understand the mechanics of what's going on under the hood. Typically, if you have an IBC policy, you would not, from the beginning, be pulling the dividends out of it. Instead, you would be reinvesting the dividends into the policy to buy more life insurance. Okay, so again, this policy, the way I've illustrated it here, is not the correct way to do IBC. All I'm doing with this one is just teaching you how to read these numbers and understand what the columns mean. Let's look ahead to age 74. Now here's something interesting happens. The annual premium payment is still $10,000, right? Because remember, this is a policy that's paid up at age 90. So if at age 74, you're still on the hook contractually to make the $10,000 payment. The dividend, though, they're projecting at this year will be $10,300. And so that's why the net premium outlay has flipped and gone negative. So it's being shown here as negative $300. And again, the thinking is, what that means is you owe them $10,000 to keep the policy in force. They're giving you a $10,300 dividend that year. So you actually can suck out $300 from the policy without putting any of your own money into it. That's the rationale. That's what they mean by saying there's a negative net premium outlay. Now, there's one more component you need to understand to realize how IBC works and also to make sense of the illustrations that you're going to see both in Nelson's original classic, Becoming Your Own Banker, and related IBC material. Specifically, there's a way that you can buy additional paid-up insurance. And there's two main routes that you can use to do this. One, which I alluded to a moment ago, is that when you're getting dividend payments on your original whole life policy, you can tell the insurance company, hey, don't send me that money. I don't want to gain dividend payments from this the way like a stock might throw off dividends and you just have that extra income. You say, no. Take those dividend payments that this whole life policy is generating and use them to buy me more life insurance. So that's one route. The other element is you can have what's called a rider appended to the contract. And so what the rider does, it might be called a PUA rider, paid up additional insurance, or paid up additions. And so what that does is it says, it gives you the ability to use extra money above and beyond your standard premium payment to buy more life insurance if you want. Now, the difference between your standard policy with its premium schedule and paid up insurance is that, as the name suggests, paid up insurance is fully paid up, right? So you're not on the hook for future premium payments. So intuitively, what's happening when you, for example, tell the life insurance company, hey, that $1,300 dividend I'm supposed to earn this year, I don't want to take that money and add it to my checking account. I want you to take that $1,300 and buy me more paid up insurance. So really what they're doing is they're like buying a mini paid up insurance policy. It's like a one pay, if you will, where you're just making a single premium payment, in this case of $1,300, and they're giving you a little policy, right? Because a $1,300 premium payment and then boom, you're done. That wouldn't buy you too much life insurance, but it does buy you some. And so there's a little cash value associated with it, and there's a little death benefit associated with it. And so the way a standard life insurance illustration is constructed is they just roll all those numbers together and add them up. So the actual death benefit that you would see if you had been, for example, using the dividend payments all along to buy more paid up additional insurance, is the death benefit would be going up every year. And so that's the complication here, and I don't want to confuse you, but that's what's going on. When you see the death benefit rising in a typical IBC type illustration, it's because that standard plain vanilla whole life policy is being augmented. The person isn't just keeping that original death benefit in force, but is also using either dividend payments or is making additional payments through the use of a rider in order to keep making bursts of one pay life insurance policy premium payments. And so again, as the death benefit rises in the illustration, really what's happening behind the scenes is the person has that original whole life policy in force and then is making additional purchases of paid up insurance, and then they're just adding up the death benefits on all those different mini policies, as it were, to show how the total cumulative death benefit is growing over time. Well, this concludes the third lesson or module in this online course in IBC. I should also mention that nothing that we've done in this course should be construed as a substitute for reading the original works. In particular, Nelson Nash is Becoming Your Own Banker, and I would also strongly recommend that you get a copy of our latest book that we co-authored with Nelson, The Case for IBC. Of course, there's plenty of material at our websites that's free for you to download. Those are infinitebanking.org and also lauramurphy.com. Finally, let me say once again, and this is probably the most important thing we can tell you in this course, if you want to implement IBC in your own life, we strongly, strongly encourage you to seek out one of the graduates of our authorized IBC training program. The practitioners who've been through this program know the way that Nelson Nash thought IBC policies should be designed, and so we feel comfortable pointing the public to the graduates of this program. To see somebody who's in your area, go to infinitebanking.org/finder.